and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. The Divisional Round is now over. We now have just four teams left in the playoffs as they all aim to make it to Vegas in 2 weeks' time. These are the 49ers, the Detroit Lions, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Baltimore Ravens. I'm your host, as ever, Andy Davis, and I'm this week joined by two guests who were a bit more regular in the postseason episodes last season. With us today, we've got Bengals fan Rory-Jo Daniels. Rory, how have you been?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Enjoying the playoffs, even though the Bengals aren't there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, but to be 9-8 and be fourth in the division it just shows how good your division is, and especially doing that without Joe Burrow as well for most of it. And then in the other end, in the green corner, with us today is Eagles fan Cam McFarlane. Cam, how are you?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Good to be back on. Yeah, as what Rory mentioned there, not so much with my Eagles after the first week of the playoffs, but at least it's making it a little bit stress-free and actually enjoy the football for once rather than having to watch it through sort of broken fingers at that point.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's it's very stressful. I mean, I had my first 10 years as a fan of the Dolphins that seeing us play a single playoff game apart from one season. And then now I've had two in the last back-to-back years. And, it's been, I say stressful, but both games you got into it a little bit as underdogs because both times you got into it completely banged up. So, I've not had it yet where we've been the favourites, but hopefully that will come. Hopefully that'll come next year. I'm still waiting for that playoff win. Now, Rory, speaking of your Bengals, I want to get your thoughts on the season as a whole because we had you on for the Bengals season preview. I think there's a lot of people were thinking you'd go far. And I certainly think if Joe Burrow was there, you would have. But what was your take on your season as a whole?
Yeah, it was obviously disappointing. Coming into the season, we had the injury to Burrow, which sort of he was healthy to start the season, but not fully healthy, and that derailed us a little bit. And then we sort of got everything back up and running, and he was looking good. And then obviously the hand injury, and then we had a few weeks of Jake Browning turning into like a mini Burrow and a little bit of a renaissance, and we thought, oh, there's a chance here we could get a wild card. And then the season ended sort of a bit like the carriage turned into a pumpkin in the end, and the Browning dream sort of died off. But we had a lot of young players, especially on the defensive side. I think we went into the season thinking that Lou Anarumo, as the defensive coach, was going to propel those players, but as we know with rookies, it's really difficult to do. So in the end, they'll be better next year with a season under the belts, but disappointing, but a season of growth. And then hopefully if Burrow comes back fully healthy, we'll be better for it.
Yeah, I'm sure if he's healthy, I'm sure you'll be once again one of the top teams in the division. I'm very sure of it. And Cam, for you, a bit of a different story for you. I mean, you were 10-1 at one point this year. Did you think back then? I believe you actually on the podcast when you were 10-1, or maybe it was around about that time of the season. I don't think anyone, but especially you, would have ever thought it went how it did. I mean, one win in your final 5-6 games of the season, and then losing in the playoffs like you did. I mean, what's your take on the season as a whole?
Yeah, it was one of those. Yeah, it was around the middle of the season. I think we're possibly, like you say, 9-1, 10-1 at that point, whenever it was that I was on, and was sort of feeling like we were in a good place in that we played pretty badly up to that point, to be fair, but kept winning games. And I thought that was a good point to be at, where we're getting over the line in games we shouldn't have won without playing particularly well, and thought it'll all come together. But as it transpired, it went the other way, and we ended up not winning the games that we weren't meant to win down the stretch, and just playing pretty poorly. I think there's going to be a couple of bits we'll see come out of it. We've obviously already the defensive side of the ball, both Desai and Patricia not coming back, but I just think it was. I think there's more we'll possibly find out in future about how bad Hurts' knee actually is, because I think there's more there than what we've seen as well. The fact that he's barely moved away from the pocket, other than trying to scramble to throw the ball, but not looking that running threat that he always has done. And when you can drop back and know that you don't have to worry about him running with the ball, it makes it a lot easier to defend against the rest. And a couple of injuries down the stretch didn't help, but I think it's a bit of a league-wide issue that we all know that no one has pretty good tackling technique in the NFL on defense, but we certainly took that to another level in the playoff game against the Bucs, where I don't think we completed a tackle in that game at any point, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did call them in that game, but I didn't think it'd be as much of a one-sided affair as it was. I didn't think it'd be quite the scoreline we got. But speaking of which, actually, going to our first playoff game, or really our first two, but our first one was one I don't think anyone expected. A real comfortable win for the Ravens. They ended up winning by 34 points to 10. And then in the other game on Saturday, the 49ers edged out a close affair as they beat the Packers 24 to 21, thanks to a missed field goal from the Packers helping in this. But I think really I want to talk about mainly two things. Firstly is the young quarterbacks that end up losing in Jordan Love and CJ Stroud. Both of these, won their first ever playoff game in their first season starting last week. And I think both can really have their heads held high. I mean, I don't think either of them really had a great performance in these losses to the Ravens and Niners, but I think what they've done, both making the playoffs when really neither team was really expecting, particularly the Texans, to make it. Stroud was overlooked by the Panthers, wasn't a number one overall pick, and he's gone out and been, I think, is the clear runner for Rookie of the Year. I'll go to you first, Rory. Just how much do you think these two, how much of a bright future do you think they have? The fact that they've gone out their first playoff game, they've beaten the Cowboys, they've beaten the number one defense in the league at the time in the Browns. For those two quarterbacks, just how much of a promising future is it for these two teams with these quarterbacks under center?
Well, it's massive, really. Especially particularly for the Texans, such a surprise, really, with the roster they had. And they've sort of done that sort of quick turnaround, but that roster wasn't particularly built to be a playoff challenger. And obviously they've benefited a bit from being in the AFC South, but at the same time, that's going to be the same next year as well. So really they're at the start of their journey with Stroud in the first year of his contract. So they're going to get that bump from him being so cheap for the next 3 to 4 years. And then for Green Bay, something similar, they can build around Love. He's going to want an extension, get an extension this offseason. So they're probably slightly nearer to having to get a Super Bowl run. Their window's probably not as wide. But again, they'll be happy that they'll be looking at next year and building a side around them. But both of them, I think, are strong, sort of easily top 10, and they'll both be pushing for that sort of top 5 quarterback. Probably around the 5th is a bit of up for debate. I think number 5 quarterback in the league, and I think both of them two will be in with a shout for that next year. So really promising and exciting guys to watch. And it's, we all know the league benefits from having more quality quarterbacks, and them two have done everybody proud.
Yeah, and I think that we've done the last 2 years. We've done, me and Sam Mould on this podcast have done our ranking every starting quarterback of all 32 teams, and I think certainly, I don't think this whole season will be a case where they're in the top 5, but I think certainly the way they're going, if they do it again next year, then I think certainly particularly Stroud will be up for debate with that. I think, I think the first 4 probably set, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Lamar Jackson, but I think, I think the 5th, it could be anyone from Justin Herbert to Jalen Hurts. There's probably one I've missed out there, but I think, I think certainly there's definitely I think it's by now the real gap between, I think, the 4th place quarterback in the league and maybe the 5th place quarterback. But either way, I think Love and Stroud are going to be, there and thereabouts. And Rory, you mentioned windows. I mean, Cam, the 49ers and Ravens, both their windows are right now. I mean, the Niners have been, their window's been there for a few years. They've had quite a few near misses, and they both, once again, we got both number 1 seeds making it to the conference championship game. Out of those two teams, Cam, which one of those two are you more confident in winning a Super Bowl out of the Niners and the Ravens?
It's a tough one. Going off what we've seen so far in the playoffs, I think out of the 2 games, Baltimore looked the better side from what we saw over this weekend. But I'm not sure I ever trust Lamar Jackson pretty much, to be fair. I think he puts the ball on the floor far too much for my liking. And if you can it's very difficult to do, but if you can stop him running it and make sure he has to throw it a lot more, I fancy a little bit more you can get into them than you can with all the weapons that you have on the Niners offense. But that defense for Baltimore is seriously legit, and we saw it with Stroud, who's had one of the best rookie seasons that we've ever seen in terms of quarterback play, and didn't look anywhere near that player on Saturday night when he went up against that Ravens team. It's really close, and I still think the Niners just have too many weapons. As much as they've probably got a little bit of help in getting through, I still think they're the one that I would out of those two stick my hat on.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go on to Chiefs in a little bit, but I do still think the Chiefs, have proved once again in the playoffs in this Bills game that they are still in the playoffs a completely different team to what they are in the regular season. And I think the Patriots were that for a lot of their dynasty, and I think the Chiefs are proving it once again. Mahomes has never had a season. He's had 6 years starting as a quarterback, never once had a season where he hasn't played in a AFC title game. I think they'll be. I think they'll be. Personally, I think they'll be a bigger test to the Ravens than the Lions will be to the Niners. But at the same time, I do think that all 4 teams left are teams that are worthwhile of making. I think really the Ravens are the only ones that really have had a easy ride to get here in terms of this weekend just gone. I mean, you look at the Lions Bucks game, and Baker Mayfield had quite the performance. I mean, I genuinely think one of the best losing quarterback performances I've seen in the playoffs in a while. I mean, obviously you can look at the interception towards the end of the game, but I think for someone who has really come into the season with a lot of doubt around him, only a 1 year, $4 million deal he was given by the Buccaneers, a first quarterback in history to be drafted first overall and have 4 teams in 6 years. He was doubted, and I think for him to come in again as the underdog, like he was against your Eagles, Cam, he's come in. He's basically proved everyone wrong. And I know he had the interceptions, but to have 3 touchdowns, 349 yards, and I think the courage he showed was brilliant. I think the Buccaneers, again, Rory, I think they're going to have to. I mean, they only gave him a 1-year deal, but I think for them, they're not going to be in any position to draft a quarterback. And I think Baker Mayfield has done more than that to show he's a starter there. So I'm guessing you can see him getting a new contract and being there for a few more years.
Yeah, I certainly think you have to give him the deal. I wouldn't give him a sort of a bumper deal. And if you're going to give it him, you sort of front load it, give him more of his money this year, give yourself some options down the line, because obviously we haven't seen him consistently be able to perform at that level other than this season. So I'm still not sold on him as a sort of franchise quarterback. But if you can make the deal work where it's a couple of years of him, and then maybe still have an eye on the draft or developing a quarterback. But certainly he's done enough. He's done enough certainly in his playoff performances where you would say, yeah, he deserves re-upping on that contract, certainly.
Yeah, I think that he's proved even in that deal alone that he's not seemingly a guy worried about money. I think you can look at the adverts he's done in recent times to think maybe he is, but I think he's proved that maybe he can be a team player in that sense, like Brady was. Not that Mayfield's anywhere near Brady's level of quality, but I think he's proved that he can be a team player and he can almost. So I think if he can, I could even see him maybe having maybe something like a $10 million deal. Maybe he'll do something like that. Well, maybe he'll think, now I've done this, now I deserve to get the money. I don't know, but I think either way, I think it's shown again that how good you can work salary cap if you do have that and have someone like him. But I think Detroit Lions. Actually, before we go on to that, I want to talk about a trend I saw on the weekend was going for it on 4th down or going for 2. There's a lot of that this weekend. We saw with there was an incident early on in the Packers-Niners game where the Packers went for it on 4th down, albeit I think it was 4th and inches, 4th and 1, but they didn't get for it. It would have been an easy field goal. Obviously, they lost by 3 points, and also they missed that field goal. There was the decision to go for 2 points by Todd Bowles late on in the Bucks game and against the Lions, albeit it didn't matter because the Lions dealt with the clock well. They ran the clock down and all that, and obviously then Baker threw the interception. And there was also the incident, which thankfully for the Bills and their sake didn't matter, but they went for it on 4th with, weirdly, DeMar Hamlin on the fake punt. Do you think, Cam, we're seeing it almost way too much, these analytics, the decision to go from a 4th down, and there's reasons behind it, and Dan Campbell's proved that it works, but But a lot of teams they often do this, end up losing by 3 points or less. So do you think this is a trend that has maybe gone too far? That I view it a bit like, in our football, there's a definite trend of teams, almost every team trying to play out from the back, and when really they sometimes just clear the ball. And I think we're seeing it with the NFL. I think too many teams are trying to go on fourth down, not converting it, and often they're losing by just a couple of points. What's your take, Cam?
Yeah, it has gone sort of a long way, and I think it all sort of started a little bit with us a few years ago when we won the Super Bowl with Doug Peterson and going for it a lot at that point and saying, look, I'm backing my guys to get it done on that, and that we converted a high percentage of doing it. But it does happen a lot now. The one for the Bills was odd, with the fake punt to Mark Hamlin. I don't know what they were trying to do there. It just never looked like working. And then, like you say, there was a couple of others with the Packers. And I think I sort of understand it early on in the game for the Packers, because you're thinking realistically, we know what San Francisco can do on offense and the numbers that they've put up throughout the season. Field goals aren't maybe going to be enough to win this game, but as it turned out in the end, there was only 3 points in it. It wasn't the high scoring affair that we've seen a lot of the year from them. And those points are important, and especially then when you go and miss field goals later on, it's a big thing. I obviously saw the Bucs with Todd Bowles going for 2 as well. I don't mind it, because in that situation they were down at that point by 14 when they scored, and you sort of back you guys to get it at least 1 out of 2 on the 2-point conversion means we're at least going to overtime. And then, but if we get it on the first one, it gives us a chance to just kick a field goal second time round and win the game without having to worry about overtime and whether we go and score again at that point, or whether they go straight down and score a touchdown. Because, to be fair, it didn't really look like getting a stop on defense at any point. They're thinking maybe we've got to try and win it on offense here rather than having to go to overtime. I didn't mind that as much. I thought it wasn't the worst call. They were probably a little bit unlucky on it as well, but it was probably PI as well on that 2-point conversion, just throwing it to the back corner. At no point does the defender try to turn his head around, but in the end, they didn't go and score the second touchdown, so it didn't particularly matter as it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that, like, I think at that point of the game, just take the points, because I get that argument. I get the fact that, it's about, you don't get players get maybe tired on defense as well. But yeah, I think everything you say, I agree with. But at the same time, I think if you're backing your guys to score from 2-point conversion, and surely you're backing your guys to win in overtime. So I think at that point, just I'm definitely would be a conservative head coach if I was in the NFL. I think I would just take the points, take it overtime, and hope for the best, because I'd rather take it overtime, have a tied after the clock hits 0, and lose in overtime, then lose by a point and wonder, what if I just gone extra? I think there's probably less what ifs if you just go for the point and just take it to overtime, because if you lose by a touchdown, a good touchdown as well, I think you can almost say, oh well, that's it's out of our hands. Especially with the fact that now both teams have the chance to have the ball in overtime. I think that maybe they would have been less what ifs, but at the same time, as we just mentioned, it didn't matter because Baker Mayfield threw the interception, and that's by really a nice segue, because I want to talk about Detroit's defense. I mean, Rory, that ends up winning the game. I mean, Jared Goff threw for 0 picks, Baker threw for 2, and they lost by just a couple of points. So for you, Rory, going into that Niners game, especially with Deebo Samuel, a bit of an injury doubt, how much of a crucial factor do you think that will be, probably even more than offense, for the Lions against the Niners?
Yeah, it's going to be massive for them. I think the Lions have struggled a little bit in the secondary at times, and that was seen as a bit of a weak spot going into that game. And the big thing, obviously, if you've got areas of your defense where you're a bit sketchy or you're a bit worried about it, the main thing is you need to turn the ball over. And I think that's what they're going to have to do against the 49ers. They might not be able to slow them down consistently, but if you can come up with big plays, then that's going to get you the ball back, get you into scoring positions, and I think that's what they'll have to do. And they've got playmakers now. They've got CJ Gardner-Johnson back healthy, Brian Branch, and obviously Hutchinson, if you can get him coming off the edge, if he can force a fumble. Ali McNeil in the middle. So they've got guys with talent. It's just they haven't always been able to slow teams down. And we saw it, didn't we, with Mayfield when he came out, and he was able to score quickly in big chunk plays. We saw Mike Evans with chunk plays. So I expect the 49ers to be able to do that, but the Lions might be able to take advantage of Brock Purdy, because at times he can throw sketchy balls. He's not averse to throwing a pick or two, Purdy, and I think they'll need a couple of takeaways if they're going to still be in it in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I think they need to almost try to establish lead in that game in the fourth quarter, because Purdy just seems to, in the fourth quarter, turn to a different player. I mean, there's a lot of times, even in the game against the Packers, he did struggle for large portion of the game, or didn't look quite, at top of his game. And then that drive in the fourth quarter that ended up winning them the game, I think that will really, I mentioned this before, but I've been slating to a lot. But I'd rather have what he's got and maybe not be the best quarterback in the league, but when it comes to clutch situations, like Eli Manning back in the day, and he comes up clutch and does that, because we've seen Dak, we've seen Tua, the two main examples this season of players that, yeah, it's all good, you're performing well in the regular season, but if you can't perform when it matters in big moments, then really what we're doing here, and where are you going to go with this team? So I think, even though Purdy, I think, is probably the most out of the four quarterbacks left, the most limited quarterback remaining in the playoffs, but if you had all four quarterbacks in a playoff situation and in a big game, I'd back Purdy probably second to Mahomes out of those four quarterbacks left. So I think, as well, with the weapons he's got, I think it's a frightening prospect for that. And I want to talk about the last game. Two great quarterbacks, and Allen Mahomes batted it out last night in the Chiefs against Bills in Buffalo. Lived up to his billing, the game of the week, and it was one of the games of the week as well. 27-24 to the Chiefs, as they once again beat the Bills in the playoffs. The third time now that the Bills have lost to the Chiefs in the postseason. That means, I mentioned before, Mahomes is playing once again in the AFC title game. His first one on the road, but his sixth in his career in 6 years starting. Some achievement. Whereas for the Bills, obviously the big takeaway is to miss some Tyler Bass. I mean, Josh Allen I thought was really good. I mean, 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air. Really, I know everyone points to the missed throw to Diggs, but I blame that more on Diggs and then Allen, and there was, I think, another missed pass. But apart from that, there's not really much more he could have done in this game. What was your take on it, Cam? That game and another loss for the Bills against the Chiefs.
That's it, isn't it? That's what we're coming back to more than anything, is the fact that it is another loss to the Chiefs in a big game when it matters, and it's close again. It was really tight. Like I say, the missed field goal away from overtime again, which is the exact reason that both teams get to take the ball in overtime these days, is because of the Bills and Chiefs game the year before, where they didn't get a chance in overtime to possess it, because the Chiefs went straight down and scored. It's just a really good quality game. Like you say, there's not much more Allen can do, but how many times are we going to say that about him and he keep not winning games when it matters? He's sort of done everything he can. It's not the best kick from Tyler Bass, who's generally pretty solid as well, to be fair. Obviously, always going to be difficult conditions kicking in the cold and the wind, as you'll get in Buffalo. But we've got to talk about the real star of the show, which was Jason Kelce in this game.
Oh my God,
in the crowd. I'll find a way to segue it back to the Eagles at any point, but shirtless, down in beers, with the Chiefs hat on, supporting his brother out there. And yeah, just getting it done when it matters again, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like you say, it's an incredible record to have gone to the playoffs and the AFC Championship game in every single season as a starter, 6 seasons in, and we'll see if he can do it on the road this time. But everyone questioned that going into this game against the Bills, and he's gone and done it. So who's going to write him off at this point, really?
That's the thing. I mean, I think Kelce, I genuinely think if he wins it this year, I think he'll go down as maybe even top 3 quarterback, because he'll have more Super Bowls than Manning, more than Elway, more than Favre, and he's already, I think if he wins on Sunday next week, he'll be already tied for 3rd for the most playoff wins for a quarterback. He's already on 12. I think some players look at Marino. He's got the arm talent, not the rings. Other players look at Eli Manning, not got the talent as much, but got 2 rings. Whereas Mahomes has both. He's got the arm talent, he's got the ring, the honors. I think we're looking at. I think Montana and Brady were a far stretch to go, particularly Brady. But I think Mahomes is his legacy. If he goes on and beats Baltimore Ravens, and then if he goes on and beats the Niners, then I think his legacy will be, I think, top 3 quarterback of all time. Before we do go, I wanted to quickly ask you guys not who you think's going to make the Super Bowl, but who you want to make it. Like, for example, I know I was very happy that the Bills didn't win on Sunday, and I'm sure, Cam, you were ecstatic when the Cowboys lost to the Packers, and Rory, I'm sure you'll be cheering on the Chiefs over the Ravens. But yeah, Rory, which 2 teams do you want to advance to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's difficult because I know Bengals and Chiefs have a bit of a checkered relationship.
Oh, yes.
It's quite an intense rivalry at the minute. So, to be honest, I'm not bothered who gets through in the AFC. Whoever from the NFC comes through, I will be supporting those. But for me personally, I would like to see the Lions there because my brother-in-law is a massive Lions fan. So that would make the Super Bowl party that we have, it would give us a vested interest. So I will be cheering on the Lions. Fingers crossed they get through.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think for me, as long as the Chiefs don't make it, that's fine because there's nothing against the Chiefs. I like Mahomes, I like the team, but it's more I want to see teams I've not seen win it before win it. Like and also with the fact I've seen the Ravens and the Bills, but the Ravens in London and in Baltimore. I saw the Lions play in Baltimore as well. I think for that I want to see a team I've seen in live win the Super Bowl that year. And I think I just don't want to see Taylor Swift. I'm tired of seeing every game Taylor Swift. It's thank God Kelce was there because he took the attention away from her at times. But whenever Kelce scored, it's straight to her, and I'm like, it's me. I know there's bigger things to worry about in the NFL, but that for me is just getting far too much now. I'm sort of hope they break up over the off season because I'm tired of seeing it. I think I want the Ravens to win for that reason, and also I've never seen them win a Super Bowl. Their win was just a bit before my time. I was checking the scores, but I never watched NFL at that point when they beat the Niners. And then for me, I think I've got good friends who are Niners fans. My dad being one, but also a few friends of the show like Paul Hope. But the Lions for me, I think most people want the Lions to win. Unless you're probably a Packers, Bears, or Vikings fan, I think most people want the Lions to win it. Whether that's down to Dan Campbell, whether that's down to the Jared Goff situation or Aiden Hutchinson. I think there's so many nice stories, and the team that's only their 3rd playoff win. I believe 3rd playoff win since the 1957, which is crazy. And I think the story there, you look at the way they're a perfect example of how you draft. I mean, everything they've done from behind the scenes to drafting, they just really built it in the best way possible. And I think they are really would be the best story. But for you, Cam, who do you want to win the Super Bowl? And which 2 teams, I should say, do you want to play in Vegas?
Yeah, I'm sort of less worried in the AFC side of things. I'm not too worried who goes out of that side. But with Rory, I think I want to see the Lions there. I think, like I say, Dan Campbell's great. They've just signed Zach Ertz by all accounts as well for the last 2 games of the season. Zach's going ring hunting apparently. So I think another little Eagles connection there. Zach's someone that I thought we should have brought back in really. When he became a free agent towards the end of the season, I thought we needed a little bit of help at tight end as well, and would have been a good move for us. So it'd be good to see him go and get another ring, having got one a few years ago, being a big part of that win for us. And then, I think on the other side of things, just whoever I sort of want to lose to them as much as anything, I'll take a bit more of Jason Kelce on the sidelines, and we'll take the Chiefs to get beat by the Lions in the big one.
Nice one. Finally, quick question for you both. Now, if the Ravens go on and win it all, can you guess that they'll be the first team since who to win a Super Bowl the same season they played in London? Rory, any guesses?
Oh, Chiefs.
No. Cam, can you guess? The last team to win a Super Bowl when they played in London the same season.
Played in London the same season. That is a very good question. The Bucks play in London that year?
No. they played the year before. I remember, I think Winston was playing in that game. I think he threw something
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 picks. Well, the answer is the first ever London game. It was the 2007 New York Giants. It was the last time a team played in London and went on to win a Super Bowl. And I believe it's the first time ever that a team's played in London and in the #1 seed in their conference. So yeah, fair play to the Ravens. I think a lot of UK fans actually are going to be cheering on the Ravens for that reason, because I think a lot of UK fans who have never, who maybe only go to London games, will really want that on there to say they've done that. They've seen a team win a Super Bowl and seen them play that season. So for me, I think there'll be a lot of, UK, and also David Ajabo as well. I don't know whether he's in the active squad or the practice squad because of his injury, whatever, or injury reserve. But obviously there was a Brit somewhere involved in the Ravens. So yeah, I think everyone's a Lions, but I'm not against the Ravens winning it as long as it's not the Chiefs. I don't really care, to be honest. But that is where we'll end the podcast for today. So first of all, thank you to both Cam and Rory for coming on.
Cheers, thanks for having us.
Great to have you both on. And we'll look to bring you guys more of our game previews this week. We'll have our Lions against Niners preview and our Chiefs against Ravens preview. And then, of course, we'll probably have a week off before then, having a few episodes on the week off Super Bowl, building up to the big game. But this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our divisional round review. I've been Andy, this has been Cam and Rory, and we will see you guys next time.